Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. My name's Scott Coyne. I'll be your host for this episode, and joining me to review the week in Belgian football is everybody's favourite Belgian, at least around these parts anyway. It's our very own Mr. Joris Beck. Joris, how are you doing?
Well, as president of the Scott Coyne fan club, I'm very happy that you're back this week. So I hope you enjoyed your week off. I'm sure there were other reasons for that than enjoyment necessarily, but still, glad you're back.
I am indeed back. I'm back on hosting duties, which you've already noticed, everybody, because our Ben isn't here this week. Always great to have three of us. It means we will always be there for you in some form or other. And this week, actually, there's quite a lot to get into, I think. A lot of news over the last 24 hours as well to pick apart and get your thoughts on, Joris. So we'll jump right in, and we'll start rather appropriately with Playoff 1, the Champions Playoff. We're now getting down to the real nitty-gritty. 2 games to go. What happened this weekend? Well, Anderlecht lost again to Union Saint-Gilloise in the Brussels derby. Union winning 1-0 at Lotto Park. Ghent losing 3-0 at home to Antwerp, and Genk losing at home to Club Brugge 2-0. So this leaves us in a situation, Joris, where with 2 games to go, Union have a 1 point lead. They simply need to win their last 2 games, and it doesn't matter what Club do. We've got this bizarre situation where Club could win their last 2 games, still not win the title, but yet have their best ever playoffs and still lose out, which is pretty extraordinary. And of course, I suppose the key thing here is those results that Union got against Club in the playoffs, those 4 out of 6 points, may, because I know we've got 2 games to go, but if it goes Union's way, that was probably the pivotal point in all of this, because it's obviously given them the advantage. But Union, they've just been so good in the playoffs. They've only conceded 2 goals, 22 from 24 points, and they've really just brought their best football all season at the most telling point. Probably not their best performance this weekend. A game that was, maybe a tale of 2 penalties, fair bit of drama in there as well.
Yeah, and excruciatingly, sorry for that, long VAR decisions on those penalties as well. But at least I guess they got the calls right from what I gather. So, yeah, that's always a bit of the balance. What do you want? Fast decisions, even with the risk of maybe a wrong check, maybe, or be correct. As long as they're correct, I guess we can handle the longer decisions. As long as they're correct and they add the right amount of time, which is difficult to judge on. But it felt like maybe too little here. Not that it would have mattered much, most likely. Yeah. But Union, of course, you mentioned all the stats. Impressive. I'm not sure if I agree with the point that they played their best football, not only in this game but throughout the whole playoffs, in the literal football sense. But they've really put a fight on, defended really well. So in that sense, of course, I do agree with you clearly. But I think they themselves have played better football throughout the season as well. But that's at the moment the least of their worries. I think as long as they gather these points. Many games they also won now with 1 goal difference. That shows how little the margins are. And of course, they did deserve to win this game against Anderlecht, but this time they only didn't create that much themselves. Luckily for them, I guess, or maybe calculated by them. As Anderlecht also didn't, but still, then all of a sudden you got a penalty against you, so it still could have gone wrong. But yeah, great save from Maurice on that one. And yeah, okay, then a bit of controversy going on, of course, after that. With the rules having changed as well before this season, after last season's penalty gate in the Lotto Park. So that with the current regulations, the decision there was correct, even though Not only Stoikis was running into who nudged the ball over the line ultimately and had an impact in that sense, was running into the box, but also some Union players. Not necessarily in the box, but at least in the half moon, which is considered well same restricted area, but there was no impact. So that's definitely a rule change that came in handy quite quickly now. Um, yeah. Um, One thing as well, so it's like good to know that a high intensity tackle above the ankle and while being late is now considered a yellow card, and that even was confirmed by like the referee was Lardo. Very strange, but okay. At least I think the around knee high is still a bit higher than the ankle, I guess. So
Just a bit, just a bit.
slightly. So like, like, well, I'll go into that. So Burgess got away with one, despite with that yellow card, he's also suspended nonetheless against Antwerp, which is well, every next game is now a crucial game, of course, for them. But especially on Antwerp, they don't have a really good record or at all. They've only won once there since their return. So one of the few sides where they struggle or places they struggle so much to get a result. And well, most likely, I think we can assume that they will need that result and these two wins still. Yeah, even this season they lost twice, both in the league and in the cup. In at the Basel, in the cup, and with 5-1, their biggest defeat this season, and as well, which was an odd result in between a whole good streak as well. So I don't know. This you can read into this in both ways, of course. Will history repeat itself there, or yeah, or did they learn from that? Yeah, or and did they get that moment already past them? Um, yeah, but yeah, Union need like another penalty miss. That's maybe also worth mentioning. They of course got a really fast penalty in the first, technically in the first minute. Ultimately, it was sixth or seventh, I guess. But yeah, the foul was made in the first minute. But and actually only 3 shots on targets. But despite that, they did manage to get it over the line. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, impressive from them, even if the performances not necessarily always are, but they always get the result over the line now. Yeah, that's something we should all appreciate, I guess. Despite not necessarily all of us like the style they're playing and so on, but yeah, that's something else. That's another discussion. But just this grit that they really have. Yeah, and they've always had, but it seems that they be able to carry it over the line this time. But yeah, at least so far, we have to speak with the 2 words. Like like I'm now literally translating a Dutch saying, but yeah, it looks good for them at the moment. But without Burgess at the Basel is a next big challenge for them. With an Antwerp slightly better in form lately as well. Okay, that's maybe just looking at the result of their game. That's we'll get to that in a bit. On Anderlecht, also like a few words at least. Yeah, playing out from the back, going wrong once again. It's not the first time this season. Yeah, and it's not really improving. And yeah, Union didn't need to be at their best to beat them here, even though, as mentioned, they were in the game still, of course, because Union failed to really kill it as well. But yeah, but nonetheless, Anderlecht, yeah, not the home performance they want at Anderlecht. There's also like that whole situation around Van den Houten that's really heating up now. We gave some interviews over the weekend as well before the game, I believe, mainly where due to company winning the title with Bayern, and that were some references there, and yeah, he's now even under more scrutiny of the own fans as he already was. So curious if something is happening there again. Of course, they also reshuffled their internal structure once again. Yeah, And well, one part which is very much a smoke screen of the in-screen of the interview with Van Hout is as well that they're looking for the new stadium. Well, they're looking for, but they haven't actually done anything concrete to get there. So that's really just loose words at the moment, words in the air, and not expected to actually be able to put it over the line. Pull. Yeah, that's the wrong way to phrase that, I guess. But to really get into that site, newly available site. Okay, it might happen, of course, but at the moment, it's just things in the air, nothing more. Yeah, so mainly things off the pitch at Anderlecht this week, and well, we'll have to see how things evolve in that board, and yeah, anything else higher up in that club structure.
Yeah, it's been an interesting few days at Anderlecht. Lots of PR going on, as you were saying, in the aftermath of the cup final. And, on that sporting restructuring point, I mean, I have not really understood the sporting structure at Anderlecht for a long time. And it just feels like throwing another name into the mix, moving somebody who was actually doing a very good job at the academy and with the futures away from there. To add another sporting voice into the mix of their broader kind of sporting policy just seems very, very odd. And there are those out there who do think that this is all part of a smokescreen effect to try and protect Wouter van den Hout a little bit more when he was under quite a lot of pressure in the aftermath of the cup final, out there giving interviews about a whole range of things, past decisions, his own role within the club, and then you get that little bit of sporting reshuffling as well across the kind of key operational roles, which was quite interesting. I just think it's, too many cooks tends to spoil the broth, and this idea that there's only two people in there making these decisions, I'm not sure anybody really is particularly fooled by that, but the timing of it is definitely interesting. Union now 2 games left, of course. Antwerp away at the Bossel, a Bossel that now has lost Tribune 2, which in the last few hours of today, really, over the course of today, has been demolished. Probably the most iconic stand in Belgian football. Most people will know this stand very well, some people more so than others. A lot of people have a lot of affection for that stand, even though it hasn't been in practical use for, so long. Well, almost a generation now, actually, really, if you look at the timings of it. Has kind of come down to make way for the new stand, which should be finished, well, certainly no later than November, to increase the capacity in the Bossel, which is obviously good for Antwerp's revenue. Going into the future as well, it should increase their revenues a little bit and get more people off the season ticket waiting list. So it's no bad thing getting a few more fans into the ground, obviously, and them increasing their revenues is good for them longer term. The other game that Union have, the final game, is at home to Ghent. However, having said that, depending on the circumstances this coming weekend, Union could win the title this weekend. If they were to win, and of course Club were to lose against Anderlecht, doesn't look like they're going to have any away fans. Club going to Lotto Park. They've still got a job to do regardless, so I don't think they'll be too distracted by that. They certainly weren't distracted this weekend against Genk. Club winning 2-0, being very professional, getting a lot of things going their way. I think I'll say that as the real neutral here. I felt they got a lot of decisions, including some that arguably, possibly, from an officiating point of view, maybe shouldn't have gone their way. Definitely did. But it was a good performance. Their remaining fixtures, obviously, Anderlecht away, as we know, this weekend, and Antwerp at home. So on paper, Union have the easier fixtures, but the game's not played on paper. It's played on grass, and it's never that simple. I thought Club were quite good this weekend, Joris.
Yeah, mainly professional job. Like, I've seen them a lot better as well, even against Genk. But I've also seen a lot better of Genk. Unfortunately, the season is really petering out, and okay, they might have to. Well, no, they need to. Genk would need to win the next two games to not end up as the team that has started the playoffs, the Champions playoffs, in first position, with the least points in over the course of what is it now, 15, 16 seasons since we have those playoffs. So that also shows a little bit on that. But we were talking about Brugge, of course, first, so I'll try to do that as well. But professional performance indeed. Like didn't create as much, still did just about enough to win the game. Yeah, and then managed to score at the right moments for them as well. The first goal with Vetlesen was, well, it was quite an even game up to that point. It could have gone both ways. There were not that many chances from either side, so it was. I mean, it was not necessarily a good game, but it was quite a balanced game at least. And then Vetlesen then Van Aken first getting too much space, and being able to just run through the defense where no one is trying to get him off the ball, and then Vetlesen also completely free to hit that ball. Penders there is it's not a big mistake, but I still feel he could have done a bit better there, maybe as well. Although the main blame there for the Genk side is like Bones mentioned before, no one picking up Van Aken or Vetlesen at that goal. A bit frustrating, and that sucked out the energy a little bit. In Club Brugge, after that, controlled it professionally. Penders, of course, also not playing a great role on the red card for Smets as well. I was mentioning with Anderlecht playing out from the back, going wrong again. In Genk, it's not all. So far, they've managed to not make many mistakes there, but this season. But of course, at the worst of times, and when you're already a little bit down, a terrible pass from him to Smets, who couldn't, who gets ran off the got ran off the ball by Vermand, and then does a last ditch tackle. Despite Vermand not really going goalwards, I still feel like maybe the intensity of the tackle might have been enough. It was also right on the ankle. Of course, Vermand adds a lot on that as well, but disregarding that, I do think it was a foul that did merit something on its own. And the ball was not that far either, so Vermand probably could have gotten it, and then it would have been a chance on goal for him with the defenders looking at a line, maybe still close to him, but on that line, 20 meters apart, still, I guess so. There are things to say. So I personally thought this was not necessarily a severe red card. In a vacuum, that is, of course, it was not a tackle knee high, but that's not a knee high tackle here, but nonetheless, on its own, I think it's a decision you can defend for sure. Genk, from Genk side, then after that the game, they still fought quite well largely. Tolo missed a header in the beginning of the second half that you would expect the top score. Well, a top scorer. He's not technically a top scorer anymore after this weekend, but a top goal scorer to score, especially one of his length. But unfortunately, he's not. Despite his length, he's not the best header. So he doesn't score that many headers, and he does get a lot of chances to hit, and that's more the main frustration amongst some of the Genk fan base as well. He does need, despite his goal tally being really decent, he still needs quite a lot of chances, and his heading is below par, I guess, for a player of his size. That was a relatively easy header from maybe 4 or 5 yards out. At least it should have been goalwards. Of course, if goalkeeper still does something really great there, that's something you can't control. But it just went wide, and that's that was one of the frustrations. But apart from that, not that much created anymore from Genk in this game. Still fought quite well, but the second goal also feels a bit much like the first goal, a bit too easy, both from goalkeeping as from defenders defending point of view. But a professional job from Club Brugge. Vettel's scoring against Genk. That's he does like to do that. That's actually this season hasn't done that much for Club Brugge, but that he still can. He's playing his role still, of course, in that squad. And for Genk, I guess the season is mainly over as well. And for Club Brugge, very much not so. They will keep on pushing Union and clearly won't hand it to them either. And you're gonna see now they're gonna lose both games and everything was decided now in the end. But that's not the most likely scenario. Let's put it that way.
A bit of positive news for Genk in the last 24 hours, of course. Tolu winning the Ebony Shoe award for this year as well. The award that goes to the best player of African origin in Belgian football. So congratulations to him. Something to watch out for is whether he can finish as top scorer. We know that Adriano Bertaccini, who's got his nose in front on 21, obviously won't have any more games to play. Tolo's got a couple of games still to play, so he's got a couple of opportunities to take the top scorer of the season, to take the Golden Boot award, goal scoring terms. We'll see if he can do that. That's definitely something to watch out for. I do wonder on Club, Joris, do you think they're a wee bit frustrated that Union have the advantage of playing first with these last two games? Obviously Union playing on the Saturday and then Club playing on the Sunday. Do you think that factors in? I mean, you've still got to go out and be professional and do the job regardless, but it is a slight advantage knowing that, well, for Union's perspective, knowing that you're playing the day before, I think, doesn't it?
Well, this is something that always goes both ways.
Yeah.
I will still also say in general, though, that these games should be played at the same time, in my opinion, and in many people's opinion, I guess. But if not, you can turn this both ways. Of course, if you won't get a result, then the result they need, then of course this is going to add some even more pressure on Club Brugge. On the other hand, if Union drop points, it also adds more pressure on Club Brugge. So in that sense, maybe it does factor in, and it shouldn't be the case. But I do feel as well like it does not really, it shouldn't really make a difference. I've not liked it myself because Genk, when they were still in a good position at the beginning of the playoffs, also were always playing after at least Union had a lot of those advantages situations versus their competitors, which is probably minor but still a factor indeed. That they can't really put the pressure on the rest. But on the other hand, the main thing, and I don't know if that's the case, if it was balanced throughout the whole playoffs, more or less balanced. I know we can't get a 50-50 balance probably with all the teams going into the small amount of teams going into it, but nonetheless, this should be quite balanced. I do think it factors, but just very little. It wouldn't be the reason why one team or the other will have won the title. I guess that you could say that, but it can be seen as an advantage. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and the other game of playoff one this weekend saw Ghent losing 3-0 to Antwerp. Ghent continuing their marvellously appalling playoff form. Their seventh loss. They've only won one. They've conceded 25 and only scored 2. Remarkably poor playoffs. Now, I think we all felt coming in, we didn't expect too much of them. You know, it was certainly an achievement just to kind of get in there, really, considering the season that they'd had as well, being so inconsistent. So to make the grade in the end, which was really their ultimate target, should in itself be seen as a success. But I think pretty much everybody's been a little bit shocked by how things have spectacularly imploded for them in the playoffs as well.
Also, the weird thing is not only in this game, I can remember the home game against Union as well. Like the first half an hour, they actually are like playing quite decent, but they don't take anything. Opponent scores and everything falls apart, and they lose like by a big margin. Well, actually the same margin to compare those two games, but yeah, very very weird things going on there as well. Yeah, I don't know, some psychological things, I suppose, definitely in there as well. But yeah, we don't know how this will continue now. It doesn't really matter. I guess their playoffs are they over? I guess they are. Like, I think they still have a marginal chance of securing fifth spot, but they are, well, definitely very marginal chance. They don't have that in their own hands. Well, okay, Antwerp still has to play both Union and Club Brugge, of course. So if they would win both their next games, they might still be in there. But yeah, ifs and buts. That of course there, a lot of them. Yeah, just okay. I think this time they had a few issues at the back as well with some suspensions and injuries. So okay, they have that excuse for this game, but it's not the first time. So and the only time, what was it? 25 goals. It's more than 3 goals per game conceded. Considering the one game they won, they actually got a clean sheet. They've got that going. So it's actually in 7 games they conceded 25 goals. That's a lot. Yeah, especially since they should have technically gotten at least one extra. I remember, but luckily that didn't matter. In the Genk game, the first game they face each other this weekend as well, and that will be interesting to see as well because, well, both sides have been really really struggling in those playoffs. So I do not expect this kind of margin, but who knows? Maybe they are the team. Well, one side can be the remedy for the other side, for at least very short term, maybe. But yeah, I would assume it's not completely certain, but that both teams also know their place in the ranking now. It's really not completely certain, but yeah, it's likely. Plus, it doesn't really matter for Genk anyway. Even if they would drop, they still have the same tickets. So the only thing that would matter is like the TV money that would be slightly lower. But I'm assuming that's not going to be the big thing. But yeah, I turn it to Genk again. But like with Gent, yeah, I mean, there's no future for Milicevic there. That's actually already clear as well, and that's very painful after giving that contract extension giving him the full-time job right before the playoffs. Still a weird timing. Well, Genk did something similar, and it also didn't work out. Okay, there it was anyway both opponents for this upcoming weekend done that and haven't fared well since. Coincidence or not, who knows? But yeah, definitely this premature contract extension, it seems to become a thing. Like also with the national squads, to put it somewhere else. Like there must be some clauses in these contracts. I suppose, otherwise it would not be attractive for the clubs or the country, for the FAs to do so. But yeah, I'm still wondering why. Because not only the Belgian national squad, actually, other nations also have done it. But yeah, there must be something in there that we don't know, I guess, which is favoring these clubs or nations.
Yeah, it's absolutely mad. Actually, some of the preemptive decisions made with these things that don't need made when they made. I'm glad you mentioned Milicevic because over the last few weeks, I've been saying that I don't see a future for him as T1, and I think that's these playoffs have just been I mean at any other point in the season, the sort of form and the way they've been conceding goals would be relegation materials. It's so kind of ironic. Maybe a season without European football, although financially that would harm them. I think in footballing terms, it might not harm them that much. It might allow them to continue concentrating on just rebuilding and having a really good, solid domestic season next year, which is probably something that they need and will probably happen under a different coach. Just a word on Antwerp, Joris. Andreas Olderink, would you appoint him on a permanent basis?
This depends on the results. This might be helping him, of course, but it depends on how they end up in the classification at the end. I guess if they do get European football after all, I would assume that there is a chance, or maybe it's even a clause in his current contract that he will get an extension of that and a chance next season. Whether that would be a wise decision, difficult to judge as well, of course. Still, their recent form has been slightly better, or at least their results have been slightly better. Not very consistently, but somehow they have been. And I think so. If they would get European football, I do think to enter shortly. If they don't, don't think so. So I think it's really result based, very short term result based now. And that's actually not always a good omen either. But that's that's something I'm whispering because I'm not sure. I mean, it has worked out in a good way before. So who knows? But
Yeah. We'll see what happens. Moving on to playoff 2, the Europe playoff. We now know the ultimate outcome there. Charleroi beating Westerlo 4-3 in a very, very good game, which we'll get to in a second. Mechelen drawing 0-0 with Standard, and Dender thumping Leuven 5-0 in a game of such little consequence. We're not even going to talk about it, but we are going to talk about the game at the Stade Noupe, formerly known as Mambourg. Charleroi beating Westerlo 4-3. Really enjoyable game this, I thought. Really open and expansive. Both teams really going for it. High risk, high reward game. Made for a really good watch. Probably not such a good watch for Charleroi and Westerlo fans, of course, who kind of totally invested in their bubble. But from a neutral's perspective, a great watch this one, no doubt about that. Could have had even more goals as well. So open and expansive was it. We now know, obviously, that Charleroi have won playoff 2 because courtesy of this win, not only did Charleroi knock out Westerlo in their last chance of catching them, it left Mechelen with the only other side who could have caught them. And spoiler alert, everyone, if you're a little bit behind the curve, they couldn't beat Standard. They couldn't beat a 10-man Standard. They played 29 minutes if you add on the stoppage time against 10 men. Couldn't get one goal to win the game and kind of keep the playoff alive. Very disappointing for them. So Rick de Mel and the Zebras have done it. They've won playoff 2. They will be in the Conference League playoff. We would imagine against Antwerp. I suppose it's a little bit disappointing maybe that it's been wrapped up as early as it was. We thought it might even go to the wire because it was so tight for a while. But I thought this was a really enjoyable game this weekend.
Yeah, definitely enjoyable game. Very much like the reverse fixture as well, I believe. Well, there were also many goals in that one. And the turnaround completely from Charleroi to Westerlo as well, of course. From 1-3 behind to 4-3 to win not only the game but also the playoffs. If they would have lost this one, maybe it would have gone to the wire ultimately in that case, that they managed to turn it around. Ultimately, Stulic and Hermans keep being on a streak, both of them scoring again. Stulic now at 16 goals. He might, at this rate, he might even still get to 20. But I'm assuming they might rest some of his players now as well, of course, since at least in the next game they might rest some of them because they already have their objective achieved. and Herman's also on 14, so that both those two combined is now 30 goals. One of the Hermans is of course not really the striker, but like one of the best partnerships, I guess you could say, the upfront that in the league in the end, and after so many times we have been saying that they really need a striker that can score goals and get them over the line. Apparently, you sometimes have to give time to some players. I actually also want to highlight another player, but from Westerlo, from the other side, which I've been really impressed with. Sakamoto, coming in the winter only. He's currently on loan, but it will automatically turn into a purchase, I believe, at the end of the season. With now 6 goals and 2 assists in the 17 games he's featured in since coming over in January. Brilliant goal this time as well. And just adding something for sure as well to his squad. Like, interesting player. We want to keep an eye on if he can continue doing so. Typical Westerlo game, this one, of course, as well. Scoring many goals, but also conceding goals. And, typical this season's conceding more goals as well. But indeed, very enjoyable watch, and quite a few good goals in this one as well. So if you didn't watch it live, maybe just or any of the highlights yet, you can just go to the goals. Some of them are really top quality.
Yeah, definitely worth going and having a look at this one. Charleroi, of course, managed to turn around a 3-1 deficit in this game to get the win as well. That's how open and expansive it was. You mentioned Nikola Stulic. I think 7 goals in 8 across the playoffs. So he's kind of kept his best form for the most important part of the season in a way. 2 assists in there as well. And I remember quite early on this season, Arben saying, have they found their new striker after he had a couple of quite good, strong games early on, and I think we were all in agreement that there wasn't enough data to make any judgments yet. But he has had a really good season, and there might be 1 or 2 looking at him this summer. Obviously, Charleroi will be very keen to hold on to him, but he certainly will be starting to attract attention now. Now that he's had a degree of consistency, I think. Kind of a key stage of the season. Mechelen, as I was saying, failed to beat Standard Joris. That finished kind of goalless. A couple of big bits of news coming out of both of these clubs. Obviously, in the last few hours, it's looking increasingly likely that Frederik van der Beest will be appointed permanent T1 at Mechelen. That could be confirmed officially as early as next week. According to a number of sources now, a number of reliable sources as well. And Standard, just today, in fact, and on the subject of a lot of news over the last 24 hours, just as well we're recording today instead of yesterday, otherwise we would have been out of date, so it's all good for us this week. Mark Wilmots back in Belgium as the replacement for Fergal Harkin as sporting director. So 2 questions for you, Joris. Fred van der Beest permanently, yes or no for you? And Mark Wilmots, will that be a success at Standard, yes or no?
Twice no.
I can't answers, I love it.
I can't make it shorter than that, but no, I do not believe in either. Indeed, Van der Beest as a manager, I can imagine him being a good or an okay T2, but to really be at the helm, I'm not. I'm very. I think he lacks the tactical. The tactical knowledge, I guess, and I feel like this is purely based a bit on his playing career, but also on sometimes how we see him at the sideline. A bit like Hazi is at times, a bit over emotional, and I do think this kind of managing, and I fear that's probably one of the only things he has. As we will also touch on some other hotheads later on in the episodes. They are currently not in the Jupiler Pro League yet, but I feel like this managing style only can work for a very limited amount of time, maybe a few months maximum. Of course, if it does, then he might be okay for a large part of next season already, but I'm not sure that he will be. In Wilmots, well, it's been a failure everywhere he's been basically lately. So yeah, that's then maybe not even
That
lately.
bodes well.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't work out at Schalke. Okay, can give him that. That's a very difficult situation to work in, but it's not that it's going to be easier where he's going in now. Clearly, also knowing that many people have said no to that position as well, so it definitely should not be a position that's really desirable. Of course, he now still has the story of being a standard from his standard past coming home, but yeah, typical PR stuff. I guess no one is falling for that. I've also heard that the new CEO, yeah, they have a meeting tonight as we speak as well, so that the timing of this news also is no coincidence to get, because Wilmots, despite everything, is still very popular figure in Wallonia. So and that's of course Standard's main region, also for fans, even though many people across the country and even internationally also are fans, of course, but and go to the Douce Classin regularly. But yeah, the core base is still, of course, in Liège. So in and around Liège, around the whole Wallonia, since there's not that many other clubs, big clubs in there. But yeah, it feels a bit like both the PR stunt for him now. The timing for how's it called, Antonelli? No, that might be. Is it that one? Or am I mistaken with the Formula One race driver here? But that's possible. But
We know who
anyway,
you mean.
the new CEO, just trying to score some points, while there are fears that he doesn't actually have enough money around him as well to do a lot, so that he will indeed need to rely on others, still on other investors, probably as well. But yeah, now trying to create a good vibe, which I mean is understandable, but yeah, I do feel that it's more indeed getting a name without really thinking about if he's a good candidate. In this case, of course, it's not the first one they try to get, of course, but despite that, it feels like that.
Yeah, I'm going to make this very boring now and say I agree with you. Both would be a no from me. I think Fred van der Beest, I don't think has done enough or shown enough. I think they need to restructure that squad, probably more than a lot of people realise, to be reasonably competitive next season. I think there are some potentially significant players at Mechelen who may leave in the summer. We'll see what happens. That would be a no for me, certainly, as well. And on Mark Wilmots, yeah, I mean, Standard seem to be on a bit of a kind of a retro tour there, getting an old band back together. I think Pierre Francois was pretty instrumental in bringing Mark Wilmots back. He made the initial contact and asked him to come back. And it's interesting at a time when they have no money, as we all know. I think the one advantage in a way is Wilmots does have a pretty big network, because of some of his previous roles, which could be helpful in a way. But yeah, when you've not got much cash to play with, then that's going to make that job probably one of the hardest sporting director jobs in the whole of the Belgian football landscape, particularly with the demands that come with it as well. So yeah, it's a big name and significant regionally, as you say. But whether it's a smart appointment, I think I'm pretty doubtful about as well. Moving on then to playoff 3, the relegation playoff. We know the lie of the land there now as well. Beerschot beating Cercle 4-2, which drops them into the hottest of water possible at the moment. And Kortrijk, plenty of drama coming out of there in the last 24 hours as well. Managing to get a 2-2 draw against Wouter Rankin's St. Truden side. So we know that Cercle will now feature in the jump-off match against Patro Eisden to determine who the final Pro League side will be next season. And I think, in truth, Cercle just kind of imploding again this weekend. Joris managing to concede 3 goals within 8 minutes when, they appeared to be in control of the game. And on course for the result that actually they needed. They couldn't do it, and they're in real trouble now. But to make things even more interesting, I mentioned Kortrijk, obviously relegated. Within a matter of hours, Bernd Storck, Dr. Storck, has gone from relegated Kortrijk to, in deep, deep hot water, Cercle Brugge. He's been unveiled as their new T1 on with immediate effect. Poor Jimmy de Wolf has been shunted, we think, to the side. He's been offered a chance to stay on board, but that puts him in a very sticky situation for a whole host of reasons. So he's considering his options. Loads and loads of drama. I suppose my first question amongst many is this a case of Cercle Brugge abandoning all of its footballing principles?
It does have all the looks of it, for sure. And the classic panic reaction. Yeah. Of course, Storck has this reputation of saving sides lower in the league in Belgium. But also he could manage this if it goes south. Then he could be managing to get 2 sides relegated this season. Despite, obviously, I mean, he's not been responsible, at least this part of Cercle, and even at Kortrijk, he came in relatively late in the season, and they've actually picked up quite some points. I think I didn't check that, but I would assume that if they would have gotten the amount of points averaged or with what they got from him, that they would have been safe or high, a little bit higher at least. Of course, not a very fair comparison either, taking into consideration these playoff games against the other weaker sides, so they weigh a bit hard on that one, but they have done quite well in those playoffs, all in all. But going back to your question, yes, I think so. A classic panic reaction, and I mean, I would assume that he's not coming only for those 2 games, that he didn't sign just for that. Okay, maybe if there might be a clause for Jupiler Pro League or Challenger Pro League, if they would go down, okay, then I can see. But I would assume also the opposite, that he would automatically be staying, and that would be even more worrying. And then putting clearly things are really going wrong at both at board level or higher up again, much like at Anderlecht. Of course, with also some new CEO with a former who came from Anderlecht, which is a coincidence, obviously, but that there have been some changes there. But both on and off the pitch, it's a bit of turmoil there, and I'm at the worst of timings as well. Yep. Beerschot twice this season have scored 3 or more goals against Cercle. That should be worrying enough for on its own. Also twice after going behind, so they still won the game. First time was, if I'm not mistaken, Muslic's last game, where they Cercle even gave away a 2-0 lead. Which put the nail in his coffin. In the end, it looks like that even really could be a crucial loss as well. Of course, if they will be looking at hopefully they are not doing it currently, but if they would go down, ultimately they will be looking at these games and these kind of games and where they drop the points. Also losing twice at home against Kortrijk in one season, that's this season against those sides, that's quite terrible. Also, not only that, I already touched on two of them now, of course, but they also have not they've lost at least once against all the sides now in the playoffs, in the relegation playoffs, in these playoffs, which is okay. Carry that over to a play down with 2 games going on. I mean, of course, the opposition is of a different level, but they're also in a positive form. That's something to worry about. Like, I never thought we would say this, but I do think these play downs actually have gotten some spice now. Maybe in a week we speak completely different after they would have destroyed Patro Eisden. Spoiler alert again there, but a spoiler alert a bit too late after the spoiler. But that they indeed they didn't need to worry, and everything's fine ultimately. But yeah, it's a toxic atmosphere at Cercle Brugge for sure at the moment. Just want to also mention a bit more about these games itself. I guess 2 corners for Beerschot and 2 goals to turn it around. Another worrying sign for Cercle. Then maybe to put it still a bit on that. And also on Beerschot as well. Also, like, scoring 3 out of 3 penalties now in the last 2 games. While scoring penalties has been one of their many, not the main one at all, but one of their many issues all season. So at least have to give them that. Plus, I mean, indeed, like we've touched on that, the whole play downs, because they've been more or less relegation playoffs. They have been more or less been relegated during all the games. I think it was after 1 game ultimately. They have still kept this fighting and actually gotten points of size. So yeah, and it played a crucial role in how it all turned out. But yeah, Cercle failed to take advantage of Sint-Truiden dropping points as well, of course. And it's worrying that both in front and at the back, showing why they need to be worried at the moment. Indeed, that's very crucial, of course. And okay, on the other game, Kortrijk fans, now it was the first game after they officially got relegated. Fans waving goodbye was a nice moment, as I mentioned also last, or like a nice banner as well.
Yeah, great tifo. Yeah,
the last week, like, indeed, I was praising the fans a bit from them. That's showing straight away why. Yeah, and for them, also very interesting summer ahead, of course. Kadri and Mesatu really carried them in those playoffs, and like I said, they actually managed to do quite well, reasonably well in them. But yeah, most likely, especially the Kadri, I don't see staying now, and I think that there will be a whole squad overhaul, and we'll have to see what will happen there. And on Sint-Truiden, we are indeed saying, like, Cercle, if they could have won that game, maybe that it looks like they would have been safe. But we can't completely say that either, because once Cercle was 4-1 behind, or 3-1 after those 3 goals, Sint-Truiden was also not really pushing, because they knew they didn't really need to get a result anymore. They were just defending that 1 point, which in advance you would think might be not enough, but they did well. It was, but and then Bertaccini, of course, we already touched on it before, but taking the top goal scorer lead now, the lead in that list, and as you touched on already as well, no more games for him, of course, but yeah, catch him if you can.
Yep, and we'll see if he can be caught. Just on Cercle, when you think about it, they've played over 50 games this season as well, when you throw Europe in there, which obviously hasn't helped. We know that they struggled to adjust to kind of playing twice a week for most of the season. But when you look at some of the numbers, I think they lost 8 times in 13 games immediately after European games. They also haven't handled the playoffs well. They've had a poor playoffs, as you were saying. And when you're playing that amount of games, 50 plus, with a squad which doesn't have the depth or the quality to be able to manage that, then it's just a horrible, horrible combination, really, isn't it? And I was asking you about whether they were abandoning their footballing principles. There is an argument that's saying staying in the division is all that matters now, be pragmatic. But when you think about it, Bern Storck does not fit in any way the kind of profile of the club at the moment. And what's kind of interesting about it is before Ferdinand Feldhofer came in, Storck actually contacted the club and offered his services and was told no because he didn't fit the profile of the club. So they're obviously going for the Dr. Storck approach very, very much. But the worrying thing would be, if he does save them, against Patro, Eisden, more on them in a minute, in the two-legged jump-off. You wonder where they go after that because, as I was saying, he doesn't fit the profile of the way the club have been playing for the last 3 or 4 years, and everything at the club obviously is determined by this. The style of players that they're looking to scout, the way that they play, all of these really important things that go above and beyond who the actual coach is, and he doesn't really fit any of that. So it asks so many questions of Rembert Vermaat, the technical director there, and that particular choice. You'd imagine if he does manage to save them, then there would have to be the mother of all postmortems inside Cercle over the summer, for them to kind of reassess where they're going to go next season. But obviously they've got a massive two-legged game coming up to preserve their status first. We know, of course, that they're going to be playing Patro Eisden now. The Challenger Pro League playoff final was concluded this weekend as well. Patro managing to dispose of Lokeren 3-2 in aggregate. They won 2-1. They won the first leg 2-1 away, and then the home leg finished this weekend 1 goal apiece. I saw pretty much all of this game, and I think the thing I'll remember from it is the bizarre dugout stramash. A fight starting over absolutely nothing at a crucial point in the game that probably did have a genuine bearing on how the game actually finished. At the time that the fight starts, Lokeren need a goal to get back into this game, really. Patro had just gone down to 10 men just before this, and you're thinking Lokeren have 25 minutes plus to try and dig this game out. And out of nowhere, a dugout fight starts. Now, public enemy number one this week for me is Lokeren's T1 Stein Vrieven, who ignites this fight with what he thinks is an innocuous push, I think, but then that inflames his own bench, that inflames the Patro bench, and it all kicks off. But anyway, it ends with one of Vrieven's own Lokeren players, Indy Boonen, getting a red card because of his raising his hands and his reaction. At this point, they've still got a chance of turning this game around. Things are still in their favour slightly, and it all changes because a coach decides to shove a player who, through sheer momentum, runs into him on the touchline. So out of nothing, this whole situation, and I watched it in genuine disbelief, Joris, and I thought that's the sort of thing that tells me I would question the temperament of that coach, and I would be wary of appointing him to any coaching role in the future if I was inside any club, because that's the sort of thing that kind of sticks with you. And just absolutely crazy stuff. Anyway, long story short, they couldn't do it. They had 10 minutes of stoppage time as well, in which they didn't take any risks at all to try and get the goal that they needed. Lokeren lose, which, as you were saying at the time, of course, it's probably, the FA are probably quite happy with that. Saves them a really, really difficult headache with Lokeren not having the licence. Patro have done it. They'll now go and face Cercle. The first leg of the jump-off match is this weekend. It's the 18th of May. That's away for Cercle, so that's in Maasmechelen. And the second leg is 5 days later at the Jan Breidel in Bruges. Normally you would think Cercle are favourites for all sorts of reasons, but in truth, it's kind of anybody's because they're so fragile at the moment, and have been so poor that you can't really have any confidence in the things that you would normally have confidence in with them. And obviously, Patro are flying high. They have been scoring goals. They do have two or three players who I think could hurt Cercle if they're not careful. I just wonder. The Storck factor, obviously they're probably going to set up slightly differently, and certainly will be very organised. Do you think the Storck factor helps or hinders Patro?
It really depends on how they will end up in the end. It will be quite interesting because Patro themselves, like they're used to only having 25 to 30% ball position, but Cercle Brugge also are like they're 13th in the league currently in ball position, also under 50%. So this could be really cagey games for sure. And like y'all, you I have the image of me like indeed just a lot of long balls, and like yeah, you can have the ball, no you can have the ball, do something with it, in my head. But um yeah, not much in it in that way. I mean, I guess Cercle Brugge's regular playing style might play in favor of in Patro Eisden. On the other hand, Storck also is indeed, if anything, is probably going to shore up a bit more. So it doesn't necessarily mean more possession. Kortrijk is actually okay. This is across the whole season, so not only his spell there. So I don't have specific facts on that, but also we're one of these three sides that were still below Cercle Brugge on the ball position, average ball position statistics. But yeah, it could be a tough watch. I think it's mainly will have to be coming from the tension. And yeah, I mean, you would assume there is indeed still a bit of a gap between Jupiler Pro League and Challenger Pro League. But last season we thought so as well, and it did go to the wire into the score line ultimately was quite favorable, but the difference was only made in the in the after extra time, after 30 minutes extra time in the second game. Even though that was a game that Kortrijk largely dominated, but okay, I'm definitely taking a sidetrack here. But yeah, it does show that like anything can happen in this kind of situation, especially Cercle Brugge, like you mentioned, and like I also touched on already. They're so vulnerable at both sides of the pitch. The main priority for them this summer really will be a decent a replacement for Denki, for Don Castillo, because yeah, unfortunately that they just don't score enough goals. Yeah, and then for Patro, okay, that red card will not help. I guess that means player suspended, of course. So that is not great for them, but they do know how to dig out the results. I also feel like across both legs they maybe didn't deserve to even win against Loke, but they still did in inside 90 minutes. Okay, 90 plus a lot of extra time added on, but yeah, I do feel it indeed will be tighter than, and I agree with you. A lot of words to just say I agree with you. It will be tighter. One, and on Storck's playing style, it depends on the changes he makes. Of course, he is known for being quite tactically apt, but not necessarily attacking. And that feel like that might have been a smarter change potentially to bring someone in who has this, at least for the short term situation, to get someone in for that's a bit more attack minded and also tactically gifted. Of course, I know they're not low hanging fruit, but yeah, they're not to find around every corner. But yeah, it really depends on how it goes. And I can't. it's not going to be pretty. I
Yeah,
can tell you
don't
that.
expect. Yeah, that's absolutely the one thing to highlight. Don't expect an open, expansive game of football. You know, this is going to be no Charleroi, Westerlo. That's for sure. These games are always ridden with tension and tend to be won by the side who plays with less tension and really goes for it. Yeah, we will see, as I've been saying to a few people over the last phase, we'll see who's got the bigger balls, because kind of that's what it comes down to with these games. I know that Hans van der Bruggen is suspended for the first leg, which I don't know if it's going to be significant at all. We'll find out over the course of the two legs, but a big player for Cercle, obviously. So, you know, he will be a loss regardless for that first game. Yeah, we will see what happens, and it's always worth a watch, even if it isn't pretty. As a good friend of the podcast described the upcoming fixture to me just the other day as a fixture between one club with endless cash available but spending less and less of it these days against a club with no cash who seems to spend lots of cash that they don't really have, which I thought was a really quite good way of describing this matchup. So that's it. There we have it. That is a very eventful week, and particularly a very eventful last 24 hours in Belgian football. Thanks for joining me and giving me all your thoughts, Joris.
Anytime. I feel like I've diverted a lot to this episode, but I hope it was still listenable. But anytime. And glad you were back, and hopefully we'll have a few more tridents this upcoming few weeks. Can't promise that, but there's hope.
Yes, we will be here on a weekly basis in some form. That's the one thing that is definitely certain. We also got another special episode coming your way very soon. We've been trailing a little bit. Got a really good special coming out pretty soon on Ral Louvière, of course, newly promoted to the Pro League for next season. I sat down and had a really interesting chat with their sporting director, David Vervilgen, where we covered loads of really interesting things. So if you want to find out more about RAL and their scouting and their recruitment and how they work with data, how they've been as successful that they have, more about their new stadium, also more about their objectives and targets for the coming season as well, because RAL are coming not just to make up the numbers. I'll give you that much as a spoiler so far, everybody. So
many spoilers. Nobody needs to listen anymore.
Exactly. So really, really good stuff in that special episode, which will be dropping really soon. So keep an eye out for that. If you like what we do here at the Belgian Football Podcast, please do consider leaving us a review on your podcast platform of choice. And equally, you can head over to our Buy Me a Coffee site and buy us a coffee at our Buy Me a Coffee. What a mouthful that is. But yeah, head over to our Buy Me a Coffee, and that helps us meet some of our ongoing production costs here at the BFP. Whatever you're up to, everybody, take care of yourself over the next few days, and we will be back with you very, very soon for another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast.